When a supervillain decides he's going to shrink the moon and cause a catastrophe on Earth, GRU and the minions will use their skills to stand up to the powerful Vector's attack. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie, Despicable Me, from 2010. In the middle of the Egyptian desert, a group of tourists arrive on a bus to take pictures of the pyramids. However, a couple's son, who was playing absent-mindedly there, broke through the security fence and climbed over a bridge under construction. The guards go after him, but they're too late and the boy falls off the bridge and into the pyramid. Fortunately, the huge structure was just an inflatable balloon and the boy is thrown back into his parents' arms. The boy wasn't hurt, but this strange event makes headlines around the world and the authorities suspect that some villain has stolen the pyramid. Meanwhile, GRU, the great veteran of villainy, starts another day by grabbing a coffee in the cafeteria, while making mischief with those who cross his path. When he returns home, 3 orphan sisters, Margot, Edith and Agnes, knock on his door to sell cookies and raise funds for their orphanage. However, the villain just wants to have a quiet day and tells the girls to leave. Afterwards, he receives a call from his scientist colleague, Dr. Nefario, who tells him about the theft of the pyramid in Egypt. GRU is jealous when he realizes that a villain has surpassed his evil deeds and decides to hatch an even bigger plan. He then goes to his secret laboratory and summons the minions. After gathering them all together, GRU announces the most audacious villainous plan of all time. He's going to steal nothing less than the moon. To do this, he needs the shrink ray, which is in a secret laboratory, and a rocket to get to the moon. The minions are excited about this evil plan, but first GRU has to go to the bank to get a loan to build the rocket. Meanwhile, the 3 sisters return to the orphanage, sad that they haven't filled their quota of cookie sales. Upon hearing this, the owner of the orphanage, Mrs. Hattie, scolds them and tells them that if they don't improve their sales, they will spend the night in the box of shame. The next morning, GRU drives his giant car to the bank in search of the loan. Although it looks like an ordinary bank, when the villain gets to the restroom, an optical reader registers his identity and opens a secret door, which leads him to the Bank of Evil. The place is used to finance the plans of supervillains and GRU is confident that his request will be accepted, even though he has made losses at the bank before. He waits his turn to speak to the manager and in the meantime, he has a quick memory of his childhood. GRU was a normal boy who once told his mother that he wanted to go to the moon, but she was very strict and always discouraged his dreams. After this sad memory, a strange guy in an orange jacket comes to talk to GRU and introduces himself as Vector. However, the villain has no interest in making friends and soon goes to the manager's office. There, he tells him about his plan to steal the moon and that he needs the loan to travel there by rocket. Although his plan attracts the manager's attention, he says that GRU is already an outdated villain with no major career successes. What's more, the old man is interested in younger supervillains like Vector, who, to GRU's surprise, was the one who carried out the pyramid robbery. Finally, the manager warns GRU that the loan will only be granted if GRU gets the shrink ray first. The villain is forced to obey this condition and leaves the bank dejected, but first he meets Vector again and takes out his anger by shooting his freeze ray into the man's face. Hours later, GRU begins his plan to capture the shrink ray, which is being tested in an aerial laboratory. The scientists realize that their invention has been a success, but the tests are interrupted when a drill opens a passage in the laboratory's hull. From this opening, one of the minions emerges, captures the shrinking ray and takes it to GRU. The plan seems to have worked, but seconds later, another drill does the same thing to GRU's ship and a mechanical arm takes the ray away. The thief turns out to be Vector, who doesn't like GRU's attitude towards freezing his face. He takes the shrink ray and flees at high speed with his ship, but GRU doesn't want to give up and starts an intense chase against his adversary. The 2 ships cross the skies at sonic speed, until GRU launches dozens of torpedoes at Vector. However, the villain is smarter and fires shots from his rear cannons, which explode all the torpedoes before they reach their target. Despite this, GRU continues the chase and manages to lock his sights on Vector's ship. He prepares to fire the final shot, but his adversary emerges from inside the ship and fires the shrinking ray at GRU. The shot causes the villain's ship to shrink rapidly. Luckily, GRU and the minions manage to get out before they're crushed, but the ship stays at a tiny size and they're forced to retreat. Despite this defeat, the next morning GRU goes to Vector's huge mansion and uses his technological devices to break in. The problem is that the security system created by Vector is impenetrable and GRU ends up being attacked, crushed and hit by several missiles. Even so, he manages to survive the explosions and tries to come up with another plan to recover the shrink ray. Just then, Margot, Edith and Agnes reappear and go to the gates of Vector's mansion to sell their cookies. The villain lets the girls in and this gives GRU an idea. He decides to go to the orphanage where the three sisters live and, with the help of the minions, he creates a fake profile and asks Mrs. Hattie to adopt the girls. The owner of the orphanage accepts the request and tells the three sisters, who are happy to hear that they have been adopted. However, this excitement soon ends when they see their new father, and everything only gets worse when they meet their new home, which looks more like the lair of a supervillain. Inside, they encounter traps, dangerous chemicals and GRU's mascot, a bumbling dog called Kyle. Finally, GRU sets rules for the girls and leaves places on the floor for them to sleep, eat and even go potty. With everything explained, GRU leaves the girls at home and returns to his laboratory to see Dr. Nefaria's experiments. He shows him the biscuit-shaped spy robots he has created, which will be used to break into Vector's mansion and get the shrink ray. In the meantime, the girls explore the house, until Agnes decides to watch TV. However, the remote control is out of reach and she climbs onto the sofa to reach it, but accidentally presses a button that reveals the elevator to the laboratory. When they get there, GRU doesn't like the girls being there at all and tells them to behave. However, Edith starts fiddling with a laser beam that was nearby and, by accident, she shoots Agnes' stuffed toy and disintegrates it. The girl is very sad and asks GRU to buy her another one, but when he refuses, the little girl threatens to hold her breath until he accepts. With no other choice, GRU sends the minions to the market to buy another plush. They obey the order and disguise themselves as a happy family, but the disguise doesn't last long and the minions make a mess of the market. Later, another mess is made, this time by the three sisters in GRU's living room. Annoyed by this, the villain tells the girls to go to sleep in their new room and, despite not being happy with their adoptive father, they obey. Fortunately, after GRU turns off the lights, the minions return from the market and bring Agnes her new toy, which makes her very happy. A new day dawns and GRU intends to start his plan to break into Vector's mansion. To do this, he asks the girls to go there to sell the cookies, but inside the boxes are the spy robots that Dr. Nefario has built. However, the girls refuse, because first they need to attend a rehearsal at their ballet class. However reluctant, GRU decides to take them and Agnes takes the opportunity to give him an invitation to the ballet performance they are about to take part in. After class, the four of them go to Vector's house and GRU tells the girls to bring him the cookies. Inside, the robot cookies are activated and run around the place without anyone noticing. Finally, they reach the vault where the shrink ray is and open a passage in the wall with their lasers. Seconds later, GRU and the minions go through the hole and get the ray, but before they can get out, the cookie robots close the passage again. The only solution is to look for another way out and GRU and the minions head for the ventilation duct. After a lot of running around, the group finally finds a way out, but they step on a hole in the duct and find themselves hanging above the living room. There, Vector is absent-mindedly watching TV, while the minions do their best to hold GRU back and not attract the villain's attention. Things only get worse when GRU realizes that the floor of the room is a huge aquarium, where Vector's pet shark lives. The huge fish sees the group hanging around and starts banging on the walls of the aquarium to warn its owner. However, Vector finds the animal's attitude strange and doesn't realize that his enemy is very close by, carrying the ray he had hidden in his safe. Thanks to this, GRU and the minions manage to get down to the living room unnoticed and run to the exit, taking the shrink ray with them. With this victory, GRU and the girls set off back home, but on the way, they see an amusement park and insist that their father take them there. Seeing that this could be an opportunity to get rid of the girls, GRU accepts. However, when they get there, the girls want to play on the roller coaster, but children can only go on it if accompanied by an adult. Because of this, GRU is forced to go with them and goes down the huge roller coaster, which leaves him panicked and nauseous. Soon after, Agnes sees a stuffed unicorn from a shooting gallery and asks GRU to pay for it, as she wants to try and hit the target and win the gift. Once again, GRU grants the wishes of the girl who, together with her sisters, tries to hit the target to win the unicorn. After a few attempts, Agnes manages to hit the target, but the stall owner cheats and says that they have lost the game. GRU doesn't like this attitude one bit and decides to take on target practice himself. However, GRU chooses his explosive weapon and the shot not only knocks down the target, but destroys the man's entire hut. As a prize, he gets Agnes the unicorn and the three sisters are impressed by their adoptive father. The sisters' affection makes GRU grow fond of them and the four of them spend a whole afternoon having fun in the park. Later, GRU and the girls return home, but Dr. Nefario warns his boss that the deadline for stealing the moon is running out. GRU then makes a video call to the bank manager and asks for the loan again, as he's already got the shrink ray. After obeying his part of the agreement, GRU shows his plan to steal the moon, which consists of traveling by rocket and shrinking it with the ray. The manager is impressed by the plan, but says that GRU isn't the right man for this mission, as he's too old for it. To make matters worse, the manager concludes by saying that he will finance the theft of the moon, but for another, younger and more talented villain. Saddened by this defeat, GRU goes to the minions and explains that his plan to steal the moon has failed. Suddenly, the three sisters go to him and give him their savings so that their adoptive father can build the rocket. Moved by this attitude, the minions also unite to make GRU's dream come true. With his motivation renewed, the villain works on his project, while at the same time becoming a more present and caring father to his adopted daughters. Unbeknownst to him, the bank manager sends for Vector and it is revealed that he is his son. He scolds the boy for letting GRU retrieve the shrink ray and Vector decides to get it back anyway. While the two plot against GRU, the villain continues his duties as foster father and puts the girls to sleep. Agnes seizes the chance and asks GRU to tell the story of her book about a family of cats. He doesn't like the idea, but decides to read the story so that the sisters can finally go to sleep. Halfway through the tale, GRU realizes that the story is about the affection between fathers and sons, and for a moment, he feels more attached to his adopted daughters. However, he soon resists this and leaves, as he still considers himself a villain. As he ponders this in the hallway, Dr. Nefario warns him that there are only 2 days left before the moon is stolen. GRU isn't sure if he wants to do it anymore, as the same day is the children's ballet performance, but the doctor tells him that he can't give up his role as a supervillain. The next morning, GRU plays with the girls until Mrs. Hattie appears outside the house. She says that she has come to answer a request to return the sisters to the orphanage, a request that Dr. Nefario has carried out. As a result, the girls are taken back against their will, but GRU decides to follow the doctor's advice and go back to being a villain. However, the days go by and both GRU and the girls miss each other. Finally, the day has come to steal the moon and the minions have finished building the rocket ship. GRU puts on his suit and prepares to take off, but first, one of the minions hands him the ticket for the girls' ballet performance. However, he decides to go ahead with the plan and fires the rocket, which flies off into outer space. Just then, Vector arrives at GRU's house and attaches himself to the rocket, thanks to his gun that shoots squids tied to a rope. When he reaches the windshield of the rocket, the villain tries to shoot GRU, but he increases the speed of the ship and causes Vector to be thrown away. After this setback, GRU finally reaches the moon and starts firing the shrinking ray at it. As expected, the shrinking of the moon affects planet Earth, causing sea waves to disappear and even werewolves to become human again. Even so, GRU continues to fire the ray, until finally, he manages to take the moon into his own hands. The supervillain has finally got what he wanted, but the lack of gravity in space means that the ticket for the show has fallen out of his pocket. Remembering his promise to Agnes, GRU looks at his watch and realizes that he can still make it to the show on time. So he gets back into the rocket and shoots it towards Earth. Meanwhile, Dr. Nefario celebrates that the plan has worked, but when he sees that one of the minions tested with the shrinking ray has returned to normal size, he tries to warn GRU that the same will happen to the moon. However, GRU doesn't hear his message as his rocket passes through the Earth's atmosphere and is almost blown up by the air pressure. At the same time, the ballet performance is about to begin, but Agnes asks the coordinator to wait a little longer, as she believes GRU will come. Unfortunately, the coordinator can't wait any longer and the presentation finally begins, only for Vector to appear at the same moment. Minutes later, GRU travels as fast as he can and finally arrives at the presentation room, only there is no one else there and the janitor tells him that the presentation is over. GRU is saddened by this, but when he sees a piece of paper marking his place in the performance, he finds a message from Vector on the back. He immediately runs to the villain's house and there, Vector demands that he give him the moon in exchange for the girls. For the sister Sake, he complies, but Vector doesn't keep his word and fires several missiles at GRU. Even with this act of betrayal, the veteran villain is not intimidated and with his agility, he dodges the missiles, which end up blowing up the mansion door. GRU moves on and Vector Shark tries to attack him, but with just one punch, he knocks the beast unconscious. Vector soon realizes that he can't underestimate his opponent and tries to escape with his ship, only for GRU to grab it in midair and fly away with it. Soon after, Dr. Nefario appears on GRU's ship, together with the minions. He sees his boss hanging from Vector's ship and rescues him before it's too late. With GRU safe, the doctor tells him that they need to act quickly, as the effect of the shrinking ray will wear off and the moon will return to its normal size. What Dr. Nefario said soon proves to be true when the moon starts to grow inside Vector's ship, putting him and the girls in danger. GRU then shoots a hook with a cable into Vector's ship, opening a passage for the girls to escape. The three manage to get out of the ship and GRU asks them to jump towards him. Although scared, Agnes and Edith jump together and are grabbed by their father, and it's Margot's turn to do the same. The girl then jumps, but is caught by Vector at the last second. The villain, however, has no time to celebrate, as the moon begins to grow larger and larger and his ship loses control. This causes Margot to slip and she hangs from the cable attached to the ship. GRU quickly sets off to catch up with her, but the cable breaks and they both start to fall. Fortunately, all the minions on the ship come together to save them and manage to pull GRU and Margot back, safe and sound. Vector wasn't so lucky, as the moon finally regained its size and flew off into space. The villain ends up being carried along and is trapped on the moon, with no chance of returning to Earth. With all the confusion sorted out, GRU returns home with the girls and puts them to bed. But this time, he creates a new bedtime story for them, telling them how the three of them made him discover the true meaning of love and family. The girls enjoy the story and soon fall asleep, but before leaving, GRU kisses each of them goodbye. Another day passes and, as GRU hasn't been able to see the girls' ballet performance, he decides to put on a private show for them to perform. In addition to him, the minions also show up to watch, and even his mother, who is proud of her son for the first time. With everything ready, Margot, Edith and Agnes begin their performance, but one of the minions finds the song too boring and decides to change to a more upbeat tune. Thanks to this, everyone, including GRU, starts dancing on stage, happy to be together. Finally, GRU decides to give the girls one more present and meets them on a platform that rises to the sky. At the top, GRU and the girls look up at the moon, enjoying another happy moment together as a real family. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.